Okay, I think it's time so we can start the session now. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome and thank all of you for joining in today. Today is Ganesh Chaturthi, and I would like to wish a very, very happy and prosperous Ganesh Chaturthi to you and everyone in your family. And still you're able to make it today, so thanks a lot. The topic of today's session is influential marketing, how to identify and engage with your influencer. It's a very, very interesting topic and probably something that would be new to some of you. In today's session, we will be talking about what exactly influential marketing is all about. And we'll also delve deeper into the mechanics of influential marketing, including how do you go about identifying influencers, engage with them, and nurture relationship with them. To lead this session, we have with us Vikram Venkateswaran. He is an AVP and Head of Marketing at Ultimetrics. Welcome, Vikram. So before I
Thank you,
hand over
Kapil.
the session to Vikram, just to set the logistics, guys, let's keep this session as interactive as possible. Fortunately, unfortunately, today the number of participants are low, so we can have a lot more engagement uh, that we can do today. So at any time, if you have any question, just type it down in the question panel, and we'll have a session for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll have an open Q&A in the end. So before now I hand over the session to Vikram, I'd like to do a quick poll. We would like to know, are you doing anything related to influential marketing? So here's a question in front of you. Are you doing anything related to influential marketing? You can either say yes, no, or you can also say never heard of this term. I'll just wait for another few seconds before closing this poll. Okay, so here are the results. And Vikram, for you, 35% have said yes. That means they're doing something related to influential marketing.
Right.
47% have said no, they're not doing anything. And 18% have said never heard of this term. So you have a right mix of audience. So over to you.
All
You can
right,
start the
that's
session now.
perfect.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Kapil, and a very warm good afternoon to everybody. And it's good to see that despite Ganesh Chaturthi, we have a lot of people online listening to this webinar. So, what is influencer marketing? And I'm glad that 18 of you were honest enough to say I've never heard of this term before. 18% of you, sorry. And quite frankly, it's a very, very, very new term. A very new, I would say it's a very disruptive marketing strategy that's coming in. Influencers and their activities and their call to action and how they enable an action is disrupting the way traditional marketing has been done. And it's just a matter of time before we see the futility of engaging in traditional marketing activities. So I'm going to delve into a little bit of this, and let me give you a couple of caveats before we begin. And the first caveat is that my name is Dr. Vikram Venkateswaran. I'm not an influencer. I'm being very upfront about it. I'm not an influencer. I'm somebody who's trying to figure out the best way to market to influencers. So the truth is, a little bit about myself before we begin. Sales and marketing. I've been in sales and marketing for a long time in technology services. Head marketing for Ultimetric right now. I've been associated with some very big brands in the past, and I love football, blogging, tennis, etc. These are some of the social channels where you can get in touch with me. So the first caveat is that I'm not an influencer. The second caveat is we are nowhere close to understanding the full potential of influencers and how to market to them. Right now, we are trying to develop a methodology. We're trying to understand how is the best way to reach out to them. We have no idea how to do it. So we are on a journey here. There are no answers. There are a lot of questions, and there are some possible solutions. So we have to take that caveat, right? And number three, if you feel comfortable in doing marketing the way you've been doing in the past, whether it's digital or non-digital, and you're very comfortable with the traditional channels of going through advertising and PR, well, you're going to be in for a rude shock, because either by the end of this session, you would probably abandon what you've been doing, or at least you will start having a doubt. Is this really the way we should be doing marketing in the future? You'll definitely have this doubt in mind. Some of you might just abandon what you've been doing and take up a new way of approaching influencers. But the reality is, our world has been dropped. It's been dropped many, many times in the past. It's been dropped by what we call as the emergence of mobile solutions. It has been dropped by the emergence of developing countries like India and China. So the global business, the way our world looks, has continuously been rocked by a lot of these new emergences. And influencers are another disruptive force that are coming. Who are these influencers? How do we get to them? How can we engage with them? How can we identify them? I think that's a pre-question. So I'm going to give some possible solutions to it. This is not probably the final solution. And as I said, we are still on the journey, right? So everybody with me so far? We're going into my slide 3. Do you know this man? Kapil just sent a poll your way and all of you responded to it. Does anybody know who this man is? I'll just give a few seconds. If you can really, if you know this man, just type it in the text box. If you don't know, well, I'll understand. Going by the responses, not too many people. Okay, I totally understand, because a lot of people don't know this man, but a lot of you will know what this man did, what did he influence, right? So I'm going to go ahead with the answer, and the answer is, this man is Correy Griffin. He co-founded what a lot of you might have done, which is called the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And for those who are not aware of it, who are not on Facebook, who have not been watching these videos of all these celebrities dunking ice water on their head, Correy Griffin is no more actually. He passed away a few days ago. Incidentally, he drowned. But today, in the medical world, if you look at the last 3 months, he has become a very major influencer. He co-founded the Ice Bucket Challenge to give people an understanding of what a person with ALS or motor neuron disease, as it's commonly known, feels like, where you have no control over your muscles or over your motor functions. So you dump this ice bucket on top of you, and you feel that rigor, and you feel you can't control your senses anymore. And Correy Griffin actually invented this because a friend of his was diagnosed with ALS. He wanted to raise awareness about ALS. He wanted to raise money for ALS. He wanted people to come to know about ALS. And you and me are talking sitting in India today, where a lot of people suffer from TB, but we are talking about ALS because of Correy Griffin. He has managed to raise about $34 million through the Ice Bucket Challenge for the ALS research. Despite not being a healthcare man, despite not being a doctor, despite not being a researcher, despite not having a hospital, Correy Griffin today is an influencer. Or at least the late Correy Griffin, I would say, is still an influencer in the healthcare space. I'm just going to take a second to pause and let this feeling sink into you. He's not a doctor, he's not a pharmaceutical company, he doesn't give medicines, but he's an influencer in healthcare because he co-founded the Ice Bucket Challenge, which went viral all over the world. Those of you who don't know what's the Ice Bucket Challenge, please look it up on YouTube. It was trending for a very, very long time. And those of you who feel it was a waste of water and etc., I totally agree with you. Let's not digress from the fact. The fact is that he did something which went viral, and because of that, he became an influencer. Today, Correy Griffin is an influencer, and he'll remain so till, for a while at least. I mean, he's dead, he's no more, so obviously his influence would wane immediately. So who are these guys? Where did they come from? And why is it become such a raging issue today? These influencers and what they do, how they affect the way we buy things, how we go to market, how brands talk to us, how brands talk to customers, right? If I go on to the next slide, an influencer is someone who's probably one among us, right? All of us are influencers in our own way. but our degree of influence changes over time, and also the scale of our influence, right? Today, we are not talking about everyday influencers. I'm not going to be talking about your dad or my dad or your mom or my mom or some uncle, some cousin, some friend. We're not talking about them. We are talking about a person who's got considerable influence at a scale, who can help you make a buying decision. That's what a marketing influencer does, right? So let's look at what happens when a person actually, one among us, starts influencing masses. There are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind when we deal with influencers. Number one, an influencer is probably one among us, but his degree of influence and his scale is much higher. That's number one. Number two, an influencer is also somebody whose influence changes over a period of time. So an influencer today may not be an influencer from 3 months from now. Are we all clear on it? Any questions so far on this? So just for our understanding, let me give you an example. See, last year we were hit by this entire wave of anti-corruption, anti-lokpal, and a big movement started in India. Almost everybody I know, at least in Bangalore and even to an extent in Delhi, was involved in it. And people took to the streets protesting against Jan Lokpal and the amount of corruption there was in India, right? At that moment, the biggest influencer for that movement was Anna Hazare, undoubtedly. And he held sway over a lot of people. He went on a fast and he was arrested and everything else. And one call out from him and everybody took to the streets. After a period of time, when the Anna movement kind of petered off, there was a rise of another movement under Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, which is called Aam Aadmi Party. And they took Delhi by storm and they won like half the seats in the local elections. They went up to national elections. And again, his effect petered off. So an influencer does not remain an influencer forever. And an influencer is somebody who can make you make a decision, or advise you or influence you to make a decision very, very clearly. So his call to actions are very clear, and his influence does not stay where he is. These are two very, very important factors that you have to factor in when you do anything about influencer marketing. So what does that leave you as a marketer? It leaves you with a problem. Your problem is, A, you have to identify the influencer, and B, you know that his influence will not stay forever. His influence will stay for a while. So whatever you have to do as far as marketing and reaching out to this person and letting him know or connecting with him or making him aware of your products and services, it has to be done very, very fast, because in the next couple of months, his influence will wane and there will be another influencer. Do you understand how dynamic this system is now? So there are influencers whose influence increases and then it decreases. But while his influence is high, you have to reach out to him and engage him. Not only engage him, you have to nurture that relationship, right? It's not a one-off thing. So an influencer is probably one among us, but his scale and his degree of influence changes. And it changes month on month, sometimes quarter on quarter. And that poses the biggest challenge to us as marketers, or to any organization that wants to take up influencer marketing on a very large scale. Okay. So you might ask me a fundamental question: why do we need influencers, right? Why do we need these guys? I mean, the traditional channels work. I can put out a press release. I can hire a celebrity to model for me. I can have a brand ambassador. Somebody can endorse me. Why do I need an influencer? The problem today is that all of us, to a great extent, look for very customized, individualized experience from our brands. We don't want run-of-the-mill experience, right? I'll give you one very, very good example. I was booking a ticket on Make My Trip, and I never bother with Make My Trip or You know how really it doesn't matter how good the system is, it just gives me a cheap ticket. That's all I'm bothered about. It gives me a low price. I can view various airlines. But to an extent, I'm also looking at some way of a greater individualized experience, right? And one of my friends, he's a big proponent of Make My Trip because he used to work for them earlier, and he talks all good things about them. And that's one of the reasons I go to Make My Trip and not Yatra or Go IBBO or any of the other channels. So he's kind of an influencer in my case, influencing me to go to Make My Trip. But this time when I went in, I had points which had accumulated over a period of time, and there was a pop-up which told me that you can redeem these points. You don't need to pay the entire amount. So I got a ticket by paying 20 rupees, right? Because I redeemed the rest of my points. And that was a great experience. So it's not about having a generic experience for everybody. It's about that individualization and customization that we are looking for. Because we are looking for such an individualized, customized experience from our brands and from our services, that's why the government or the community or the industry and society have started revolving around these people called influencers, because the influencer knows us to some extent, knows our likes, dislikes. He also is somebody who can probably fashion our likes and dislikes to a great extent, who can probably advise us, who can probably guide us, who can probably coach us. So an influencer becomes important because we want very, very unique experiences from the brands we deal in. We don't want run-of-the-mill experience. We want the brand to know us, to understand us, and give us something customized. And in order to do this, the brand obviously is trying to ascertain what we do. There are brands that have great analytic systems that monitor you or sometimes see your behavior online or look at how you purchase. But the brands also know that these influencers are a great category who understand us to a great extent because they're one among us. And they know that by tapping into the influencer, they can understand what's happening. And if the influencer is convinced that the brand offers something of value, then the influencer might be encouraged to share that information forward. And then we will make the connection with the brand and we'll make that purchase with the brand. So it's a kind of it's not exactly like PR. PR is different, and I'll come to why PR is not an influencer. It's not like advertising, because it's an advertisement, right? I mean, there are still folks who I know who says that if a brand is advertising, it's actually not doing well, and they're throwing money into advertising, which is obviously a wrong notion. But this is not advertisement. This is not PR. This is definitely not celebrity endorsements who we know. Like, we know these celebrities are not using that brand. I mean, if you really believe that Shah Rukh Khan drives an i10, I'll be really surprised, because I know he doesn't. Or he might have an i10, but he won't drive it. So there's a difference between a celebrity endorsement, between advertising and PR. And influencers are different. Influencer probably is a customer of the same brand that he's propagating. Because he's one among us, right? He's probably using that brand. So there is a certain degree of trust. Because he comes from a background, we know him, and he has our best interests in heart. And a lot of these influencers actually are doing it for the greater good of society. Believe me, there are still people who believe in greater good of society, and influencers, they don't want to dilute their influence by recommending something that doesn't work. So I think we need influencers primarily because we have become very choosy about the kind of brands that we're going to buy from, nothing else. The kind of brand, the kind of experience we want. So we have probably created the need for an influencer, and that's why they exist today, in other words. So how do they work? I mean, this is something I took from a website, and I think the important part here is, if you look at the involvement of influencers, it goes up very, very high in the initial part of your purchase cycle. So these are guys who will actually spot out a new trend and probably tell you the trend is coming. And then as you go towards the purchase decision, their influence increases again, because whether it's negotiating on a contract or the rate or the right price to pay, the influencer role increases. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're buying a house, and you're buying a house in a faraway area. So I used to live in Delhi earlier. So let's assume you're buying a house in Gurgaon, and it's one of the, or not Gurgaon, let's say you're buying a house in Manesar, which is still further away, and you have no idea how Manesar is going to develop or what's going to happen, etc., etc. So there might be some influencers in the real estate space. Um, uh, yeah, sure. Okay, so I got a question about the influencer program of LinkedIn. True, it exists. We can talk about it in detail later if you want. But suppose I want to go to Manesar and I'm not very sure whether the place will work or not. So in the initial stages, I will read up a lot, talk to local people who I know, or online when I have forums where like-minded people are present, and I talk to them about Manesar and its capability to develop as a futuristic town. And then eventually I will scope out, I'll go there, I'll have a look, I'll talk to the local residents. Again, by the time I'm buying something, it'll immediately, I will try to talk to influencers again to understand what is the scope of work, what kind of contract should I get into, is there an OC, what kind of khata will it come under, etc., etc. So the influencers, their work is the highest in the initial phase of when you decide, okay, I might need this, and finally when you're closing out the deal. Somehow their influence wanes in the in-between period. So that creates another set of complexity for brands, how to identify where the customer is on the buying cycle. Because if the customer is in the initial phase or towards the later stage, that's when he will engage with influencers the most. Towards the middle, the role of influencers kind of reduces because you're sorting out your own internal logistics at that time. And you probably will not listen to influencers that much. So not only who is influential, at what scale he's influential, but also what time he's influential. So three-dimensional factor when it comes to influencers. So what do they do? So obviously, number one, influencers create awareness. You saw from the previous slide, if I'm learning something new, I'm figuring out something new, influencers are very important to me. But generally, if I don't know anything about the subject, and I suddenly come in here, like 18% of you said you didn't know what is influencer marketing. Today you are. So in a way, Digital Vidya has acted like an influencer for you, created that awareness for you through this session, right? So they have kind of become a platform that creates awareness about a new concept, right? Then I think Kapil mentioned that 45%, was it 45% or 50% of you are doing nothing about it. So probably some of you after today's session would go back to your organization, will go back to your marketing organization, will go back to your sales organization and says, hey, you know what, I know about influencer marketing. I just came to know that these guys are doing a session. I attended the session. Do you want us to start something on that area? Do you want us to do influencer marketing as such? And that may drive action. And for the 20 or 25, 35% of you who are already doing influencer marketing, you can actually go back and validate your results and say, this is the way it's going. So are we getting the right results, what we're looking for? Are we catching the right influencer? Have we identified the right influencer? Have we got the right scale of influencer, at what stage he is, what is his scale? And finally, have we caught him at the right time of the customer buying cycle? Because in the initial and the later part of the buying cycle, the influencer is very effective. Towards the middle, the influencer is not really required, right? So creates awareness, drives action, and validates results. And that is applicable to most of you on this webinar today. That's what they do, and that's what they're so good at. So just let me pause for a second. Any questions? I got this one question, reminds me of the influencer program of LinkedIn. Yeah, so LinkedIn, I have used LinkedIn for a very long time, and I have invested a lot with LinkedIn as well. So I think the important part about LinkedIn is that how they identify influencers is slightly different from how I would ideally like to do it. They have a lot of corporate rock stars, superstars, and we'll discuss that in some time, as their influencers, and they give them, you can follow them and you can raise your profile, etc. But I think that's at a much higher scale, and we will discuss that because I have it in one of my slides as we go along, right? Thanks. So let's look at how many faces of influence are there. And some of these people may be familiar to you, and those who are not, we can probably discuss it later offline. You have the celebrities, you have the authority, you have the connector, you have the brand, you have the analyst, the activist, the expert, the insider, and so on. So the agitator and the journalist. So you have all sorts of influencers. And again, I'm not saying they have to be really, really famous. What I'm trying to say is there are different types. Someone like Guy Kawasaki on my left is a big celebrity. He is the co-founder of one of the earliest people who joined Apple. Very, very famous. He's like a rock star in Silicon Valley. He has many startups to his name, etc. Then you look at somebody like Seth Godin, which is the #2 guy, and he's an authority. You talk about branding and you talk about B2B marketing. Seth Godin is probably the best there is. His blogs are very, very well read. So like that, there are many faces of influencers. They come in various forms, in various shapes. Some are just authorities, some are analysts, some are experts, but their degree of influence obviously again changes, the level of influence changes, the scale of influence changes, and to what extent they can influence you depends on where you are on the mindset. There is no change to that. But there are various types. You can't say, okay, this guy, an influencer looks like this. You can't say this guy will be like Sherlock Holmes, right? Wearing a cap and a hat and having a pipe in his mouth and loitering about somewhere. It doesn't look like that. You will be surprised by where and who is an influencer. Because it's very, very easy for us to make a common mistake that somebody who looks like an expert is an expert. They have a joke, right, that everybody looks like an expert till they start speaking. So we should be very, very careful in understanding and not getting carried away by stereotypes. There are all sorts of experts. If you look at something like healthcare in India, right? One of the when we did an analysis of the influencers of healthcare globally, right? We found out the most influential person in healthcare today is maybe American President Barack Obama. He's probably the most influential person in healthcare today because this man today has made so many policy changes and so many bills to promote healthcare that he's probably one of the greatest drivers of that industry. People are more influenced to join healthcare. Decisions are happening in healthcare. The talent, that is being attracted to healthcare, as well as the number of new organizations being formed in healthcare, are primarily because of his policies, etc. So, similarly, if you look at the banking industry in India today, last 1 month, you know who would come up as the most influential person? And the only clue is he's not a banker. Does anybody have a response to that? Who do you think is the most influential person in banking today in India?
Governor of RBI by Mayur. Modi is another one.
Yeah, probably. More than the governor of RBI, I think he'll be Prime Minister Narendra Modi because of his Dhan Yojana. I think he will be the most influential guy in banking today. So influencers comes in all sizes and shapes. Sometimes they are heads of state, but mostly they are one among you and me who will probably encourage you. So what I want you to avoid is to avoid any stereotyping. Don't look at stereotypes, right? Let's move on. So let's look at a B2B decision-making process. And I'm taking a technology example because I'm slightly more familiar with technology. This is what we do. So a traditional external influencer somewhere falls in the blue zone. This is purely a B2B scenario, right? So someone's defining the technology parameters, someone's doing the information search, then there are these external influencers in the form of analysts, consultants, and they'll have media here, but I have a big question mark on the role of media as an influencer. Then the shortlist analyzer and the final solution recommendation. In this blue zone lie most of your influencers. These guys would probably influence this deal more than anybody else, more than the CMO. A lot of us make this mistake. We say, hey, you know what? The CMO is actually a big influencer or is a big decision maker when it comes to a CRM vendor system. Maybe he's true, he's a decision maker, or she in this case, but she may not be an influencer in this space. Just because she's a marketing head, that doesn't mean she understands everything about how a customer relationship management system should be set up. Similarly, there are people who are identifying CRM business challenges, but they are not influencers. The real influencers are within this blue zone, and out of which the most important people are the ones who analyze the shortlist, give the final recommendation, and there are a lot of these analysts and consultants in between who are external, and they probably would be the most important third-party influencers to influence this deal. Now, whenever we go to a B2B deal, we know the deal cannot be finalized by one person. It has to be done by a decision-making unit, a whole unit, a set of people, and there are all sorts of people, right from gatekeepers to anybody who influences, finalizes a decision. But remember, all the decision makers eventually are influenced by this tiny set of influencers. And who are these tiny set of influencers? How do you find them? That's an interesting question, and probably I'll throw some light on it as we go along towards the end. Kapil, just checking, are we good on time, or are we?
Yes, we've 32 minutes past 3, so we can go for another 10, 12, 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, then in that case, let me jump to the meat of my presentation. Now, how do you identify influencers, right? And this is a question that a lot of you asked me. So from a tools perspective, there are a couple of tools in the market which are highly recommended, and they all are mostly paid. There is no free tool available. So how these tools works is, and as this is digital Vidya, I'm going to talk more about how you can identify influencers from the digital space. And what these tools do is obviously based on your search parameter, based on the area you're looking for an influence, the geographic area, the technology area, or the industry. They scan the entire digital world, which is not only social, and I'll come to social in a while because social seems to be creating a lot of confusion, but it's more than social. It is the other places like company websites, company forums, blogs, analyst reports, etc. And they identify who are the core people you should be reaching out to at this point of time. So it's like the degree to which this person is influential and at what point of time and at what scale. For example, the influence of a person is determined by which other person of influence is actually listening to him. Let me give you a small example. So if Kapil is an influencer, let's assume he's a digital marketer, and let's assume the Times of India actually interviews him for one of their Sunday pages on technology. That means that Kapil is definitely influential because someone of repute like Times of India is interviewing him, right? Some of these common tools, and I don't have a slide on it, so I'll just say it out and you can just write it down if you have a pen and paper. The most interesting tool I have used to identify influencers is a tool called Littlebird, Littlebird, and it was in the beta stage for long. It had free access, and now it's gone into live. It's gone live now, so you have to pay for the access. It's a pretty interesting tool. The other tool that I have used in the past is called Opinions, APINIONS, and the third tool that I've used to identify influencers is a tool called Conversion. Conversion actually was a very integral part of a pilot we did in one of the companies I worked for. All three tools are great. I would recommend if you're really serious about influencer marketing, and especially from a digital perspective, you should start getting into a conversation with one of these three. But let me come back to how do we identify influencers from a generic perspective, right? The first kind of influencer is your resident expert. So all of you, those of us who work in corporate world, we always have this one guy who's ready to take training all the time. Like he always knows what's new in some financial calculation or some. If you're in the marketing space, he'll know what's new and which social media is new, how do you use it, etc., etc. So the resident expert is the first level of influencer. He's somebody who's very, very local, who's within the company. Everybody knows him, at least not within the company, at least within the community. Everybody knows him and they go to him. He's the go-to man to solve problems. So he's called the resident expert, and that's the lowest level of influence. The second influence is a rising star. So let's assume that we We want to look at people who are rising, who are just coming up. And let's look at, again, let's go back to education. Let's go back to online education or digital education. So one might say that, Mr. Pradeep Chopra, who runs Digital Vidya, is a rising star, right? He's rising and he's influencing people to come onto the digital world and to learn and understand all of these subjects like influencer marketing today. So Mr. Pradeep Chopra is probably a rising star. Then we have the industry rock stars. There are these couple of companies like, if you look at Coursera, which is a free online MOOC. So I will say the industry rock star could be Coursera because it's big and it's widespread and a lot of people do their courses. So I would say Coursera would be an industry rock star as far as digital is concerned. And finally, we have the superstars. A superstar in the online digital space, education space, could be somebody like Harvard or Stanford running an online course, or Stanford running a MOOC. So that would be kind of the superstar in the digital education space. Like that, you can start naming people. You can actually have individual people who will influence right from the local community all the way up to superstar status. So if you look at somebody like, let me give you an example from another space. Let's talk about cars. And when you talk about cars, there are these various experts who've kind of developed cars over a period of time. So Dilip Chhabria could be somebody like a superstar, right? Because he's the king of customization. He has probably customized cars for celebrities, for everybody, and his creations are brilliant. So he might be a superstar. But at the same time, your resident expert could be your neighborhood guy, not a regular garage, but this guy in your neighborhood. And in Bangalore, we have a lot of these guys in places like Koramangala who customize cars. And they're good in their own way, and they're very influential. You talk to them, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about vehicles. And they will influence you to either do something or not to do something. So your degree of influence would vary from resident expert to superstar. And how do you identify them in the digital space is through some of these tools that I've told you. The cheapest way to identify somebody, and it's not always the correct way, is clout. If you haven't used it, I would recommend, just for fun, don't take it seriously, but just for fun, you can go to clout.com. And you can check out the influence of a person. There is also something called CRED, K-R-E-D, CRED scores. You get CRED scores, and these are all fun. Okay, these are not serious. Don't base your marketing decisions on a cloud score or a CRED score, and then complain to me that it didn't work out, because that's just for fun. There is a lot of variation in it. If you want to get a true tool, you have to go to one of these three, and you probably have to pay for it, right? I want to leave you, I think we are slightly out of time, and if you don't have questions, we'll go further. But I want to leave you with a very important lesson: avoid fake influencers. What has happened today? Because we have spent so much time associating media advertising and celebrity endorsement as the true test of influence, that we always fall into the trap of a fake influencer. So when I say advertising, I'm saying very, very clearly, doing an ad, taking money for it, is not a test, is not an influencer, right? At least in my definition. Others can agree with me or disagree with me, but I don't really care, because according to me, a true influencer cannot be bought, right? So PR, is that an influencer? I'll say a lot of you people will feel, yeah, right, Arnab is an influencer, or Mr. Pranay Roy is an influencer. I don't think so. Is advertising an influencer? I don't think so. I don't think so. Is celebrity endorsement an influencer? I don't think so. Not in this new world. These were great tactics, great philosophies, and amazing innovation that happened over the last 200 years, where people actually went into advertising. People like David Ogilvy actually took up something like advertising, made it very serious. If you look at the Indian context, there were so many great advertisers, from Shunu Sen to probably, there's so many of them. But in today's world, are these influencers? Well, I beg to differ. So how do you avoid these fake influencers, right? First of all, media is not an influencer. In my opinion, media is an amplifier. It amplifies the messages. Maybe they amplify the messages of the influencers or they amplify anybody's message. It doesn't matter. But media is not a true influencer, it's a fake influencer. It's actually an amplifier. That's the first mistake we make. We think media is uh, is an influencer. It's not. It's an amplifier. Number two, don't go by social media following. Just because a guy has 10,000 followers doesn't make him an influencer. Doesn't make him an influencer. Anybody can buy social media followers. If you really, if you're really interested, you can shoot me a mail offline, and I can tell you how to go about it. But social media following is no indication of influence. I can jump today to 10,000 followers, but it doesn't mean anything, right? And number three, buying influencers is a very bad idea. True influence cannot be bought. It has to be earned, or it has to be nurtured, it has to be engaged. If you are able to buy an influencer and he speaks about you today, just imagine what your competitor would do. He would buy him too. Then what's the use of having an influencer, right? We are going about it totally the wrong way. So buying influencers is a very, very bad idea. People have tried it in the past. I have personally been approached to go and talk to this analyst and give them what they want so that they can write good things about us, and I've always shot it down. It's a very bad idea. Today, if I'm able to do it, then tomorrow somebody else will be able to do it. Right? So influencing influencers should be in a positive sense. Should be where there's something of value to share. You really think your offering, your product, your service is going to make a difference. If it does not, then forget about it. There's no point. So trying to bribe influencers or buying influencers is a bad idea. These are three common pitfalls that we make. Equating media as influencers, equating social media as a sign of influence, and third, trying to think that we can buy these influencers off. If a blogger, for example, can be bought to write good things about you, he's not really an influencer, because true influence can't be bought, right? It has to be earned. So how do you market to an influencer? I've followed these 4 steps. I don't know how you would want to go about it, but just remember, marketing as a discipline, marketing as a subject, deals with trying to build things over a period of time. It's not like sales, which is very transactional. Marketing is more about nurturing relationships, right? It's about conveying a message and building a message over a period of time. So first question you need to ask yourself before you even get into influencer marketing: does your product or service actually solve a problem? I'm assuming it does, because most companies today are in the business of solving problems, otherwise they won't be there, right? So does your product or service solve a problem? Then the next question to identify influencers, even before you go into the tools and start putting in your keywords and try to identify who's there, is who else would be interested in solving that problem? Let's assume there's a housing problem, and there's a big housing problem today. We don't know, we don't know which is the next great area that will develop. Then you should ask yourself, who else is interested in solving that problem? Is somebody in the municipal council who thinks this problem is important? Are there social scientists? Are there academics? Who else is interested in solving this problem of housing? Then you apply this metrics to this research to your tool for your given geographic area, and you'll get a set of people who might be analysts, who might be consultants, who might be professors, who might be political leaders. They are influential as well. And then you start engaging them on a regular basis. When I say you engage them, I don't mean you spam them with a half a dozen mails a week. That means you find some time, you call them over, or you go over to their events, talk to them, make them understand your position, start involving them in your product creation process as well, which is your last step. Get them involved in your campaigns, get inputs from them. What do you think? Should we do this? Should we not do this? And then you will see that their inputs are obviously useful, but you will see a relationship building up between you and the influencers. And then the objective is to keep nurturing those relationships. See, his influence might have risen and then might have fallen, but you should not abandon influencers immediately. Shouldn't say, okay, he's not working anymore. 3 months, his influence has gone down. Keep him warm, because you never know, his influence might rise again. And when it rises, so does yours. So influencers have to be nurtured. They are people that you take advice from. There are companies that form these industry advisory boards. Some very good companies that do that are companies like 3M, companies like Google, companies like Microsoft, and they do it for a reason. They do it for a reason because they know that the future of the world cannot be predicted, and how the internet or how technology or even how manufacturing will progress from here will be very, very different. That's why they keep these advisory boards who constitute all sorts of people. They're not just industrialists there. There are analysts there, there are consultants there, there are philosophers there. Sometimes they even get poets on board, because they say that software engineering and philosophy and poetry go hand in hand. I don't know how that works. I'm not a software programmer. So it's very, very important to keep these folks engaged throughout, not just pick them up and drop them. So it's celebrity endorsement. You say, okay, you do these 7 days in a year, you'll do these 10 ads, and the contract is up for a year, right? Influencer marketing, there are no contracts. It just goes on, because you have to stay on top, and you need to keep engaging with the influencers. You have to keep adding people to that list. You might even want to remove people from that list, but make sure that you keep the conversation going. Your degree of how much you want to engage with an influencer can also change with a period of time, can also change with how much the influencer is still valid for your particular industry, right? This is something we did it in healthcare some time ago, and because this is a digital forum, I wanted to take a digital example. There are so many other examples in the non-digital world, but after this, I think we'll open it up for questions. So Kapil, I'll just take 2 minutes, if that's okay, just to complete this one case study.
Sure.
So what are the first? Thanks, Kapil. So what the first step we did was we started defining keywords, the kind of keywords that we want to track on online conversations. And one of the major things when you do it in a regional language, or regional languages are always a challenge, and international languages are also a challenge. Our case study, we did it in only English. Second, we started mining data from those keywords for that relevant time frame. Remember, influencers go with time. And we started analyzing the data to understand who were the key influencers within the industry. Again, we looked at people who not only had a strong reach, but were also quoted by other sources which had a strong authority, right? So, for example, there was this gentleman who was I think he headed a think tank or a non-profit organization, but we found on regular times that his articles were picked up by Forbes. So there was something about this man that really attracted folks to give his article on a regular basis. So we put him on an influencer list. And then we started establishing benchmark measures. Okay. So we started assigning scores. We started assigning a weighted average to this person. So these 5 people, these 6 people actually have the most influence in our target audience. If we go out to them and we start talking to them and engaging with them, we'll probably do a much better job than reaching out to the rest 15 or 16 more. So we started assigning weights to them. We started creating categories. Who in this quarter, who's our most important influencer according to our charts, according to our analytics? And then we started reaching out to them, engaging with them, while keeping the nurturing warm with the others as well. As I told you, the influence changes with time, and some people rise and some people fall. So essentially, if you look at the chart to my right, we looked at news forums, we looked at microblogs, social networks, social media aggregators, photo sharing sites, wikis, video sharing, and essentially we tried to map them on 4 areas: reach, how much reach they had, how much authority they had, how well connected were they. Some of these people, they have a lot of reach, they have a lot of authority, but they don't respond back to you. They don't talk back to you. Even if you send them a mail, you send them a message, you hear nothing from them, just static. So how well connected were they? And fourth, what is the level of engagement? One thing I did not put here on purpose is we also measured how many of them were engaged with our competitors. That's very important. If it's already engaged with your competitor, and if its sentiment towards your competitor is positive, then you have a far greater task of convincing that you're better. So sometimes it's best to go with influencers who are undecided or who are at least not positive towards your competition. With this, we created a longish list. I can't go into much more details because the project is still on and it's a pretty confidential project. It's a highly sensitive project. But This gave me a very, very good insight into how we could reach out to the right influencers and engage and nurture them, right? I think with that, I will pause for any questions and answers that you might have. We have about 10 minutes. I'm so sorry, I took up more than I was supposed to.
That's okay. And thanks for such a wonderful session. Guys, we are open for questions. So there are few questions which are already lined up. I'll just take some of them while everybody is typing in their questions. There's a question from Ganesh Kamath. I don't know whether you can see that or not. He's saying you said that the advertisements cannot be really considered as an influencer. Would you say that AB Amitabh Bachchan was bought as an influencer by Gujarat Tourism? Remember that he was bought in as an endorser. Apparently, it did wonder to Gujarat Tourism. So, your comments on that?
Yeah, see, I don't know Mr. Amitabh Bachchan personally, and I definitely want to visit Gujarat, and it has got nothing to do with Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. I have not visited Gujarat personally, but I want to visit Gujarat because of Mr. Narendra Modi and all the wonderful things he talks about Gujarat. So, as far as I am concerned, Mr. Narendra Modi is probably a bigger influencer for me to go to Gujarat than Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Now, is Mr. Amitabh Bachchan an influencer? It's a very tough question to answer, right? It's a very tough question to answer. He's an influencer in one area, I would say that for sure. He's a very good influencer in how film stars should manage their careers, right? If you compare him to his peers like Rajesh Khanna or some of the others, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan has done a much greater job of that. So he's definitely a good influencer in that area. But because I'm sure there were commercials involved in the Gujarat campaign, which would make him, in my definition, not a pure influencer. It's definitely he's a celebrity endorsement. This is a celebrity endorsement, and let me tell you, if you Ganesh, I don't know if you're from, I'm assuming you're from Karnataka. So if Mr. Siddaramaiah pays him some more money, he will definitely become a brand ambassador of Karnataka, and we'll have greater tourism in Karnataka. I'm pretty sure of that.
Great. Uh, and one other question I keep wondering internally at Digital Vidya, even if you look at these webinars, they are more like building relationship with influencers, like you are one. And if I look at the whole range of influencer in our space, from rising star till the people who now become more like a celebrity, the same strategy really doesn't work for each one of them. So do you have any opinion and any thoughts on to get a good ROI of returns, which category of influencer should one start with, and depend like or is it depends on the kind of brand you are or the kind of organization you are?
Right, right. So, yeah, I think it depends on your corporate strategy. So if you are, let's assume you have a cake shop in Bangalore, and you
Mhm.
are supposed to be a local cake shop. You're based in Koramangala, Indranagar, one of these areas. So you want somebody like the resident expert or somebody like the rising star to engage with, because your scope is not beyond that. You don't want the industry rock star or the superstar, because you definitely are not going to go national. But if you have national or international ambitions, then it's best to engage with influencers of that category and not bother that much with the local influencers. So it depends on where you want to take your campaign to. If you want to go national, if your product is something like, for example, digital Vidya, I think is something that can definitely go national. I'm sure it can go international as well. So your focus, primarily, in my opinion, should be more towards the superstars and the industry rock stars, because that's where I think you will gain most traction, as compared to, say, a local business which is very locally held, brick and mortar business, which has no international presence, no national presence. I think they are better off dealing with the rising stars as well as the resident experts.
Got it. Great. So, by the way, in response to your response on Ganesh question, Ramakrishna has probably made a comment which saying that, are you predicting the death of celebrity advertising? So, any? Any comments on that?
Yeah, so I was very amused by celebrity advertisement in one context, and I wrote a piece about it probably on Silicon India 4 years ago. It was a very interesting scenario when Gillette, which had four brand ambassadors, four superstars of sports, and all four got into trouble at the same time. It's very rare that this happens. The four gentlemen in question were Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, Rahul Dravid, and Thierry Henry, right? And for those of you who remember what happened during that time, Roger Federer lost his #1 ranking, and he actually cried after losing one tournament. I think it was Wimbledon or French Open. Thierry Henry handled a ball in the qualification against Ireland, which helped France qualify, but he actually used his hand to push the ball back into the back into the pitch, and scored from there. And he fell from grace immediately. Rahul Dravid was dropped from the Indian cricket team at that time, and Tiger Woods, we all know what he did. Uh, so there was this company which had these four superstars endorsements, which kind of backfired on them. Uh, it brought about a equation where I thought that maybe companies should start hedging, do a brand ambassador hedging. And if you look at some of the larger brands, especially in the fashion world, brands like LVMH, they have endorsements from everywhere, including Michael Gorbachev to people like Jennifer Lopez endorsing them. So, hedging has become necessary because nowadays what our celebrities do or what our endorsers do, it's not secret anymore. News travels fast through social, it spreads very fast. In my opinion, celebrity endorsement will be alive till marketeers believe in it. We still have a lot of marketeers who have spent years in creating this as a discipline. They have invested in this, and they will continue to keep it alive. But I think the new breed of marketeers who start taking to influencer marketing will, once they rise, they will create the death of the celebrity endorsement.
Great. So, guys, I'm taking up more questions also. Simultaneously, I'm just launching this whole question in front of you. You can call it more like a commercial break. So, in case you do, we do digital marketing courses. So, in case you are interested in our upcoming 6 month digital marketing course, you can just mention yes over here, and I'll ask someone from my team to call. So, there's a question from uh, Ashish Kekre. His question is how to tap influencing in B2B campaign in short-term campaigns. For example, in a co-branding campaign like Delhi Daredevil and Muthoot Finance. The ad campaign that
Mhm.
was an example to explain the notion on branding, which was the initial question.
Okay. So, Vivek, right?
Ashish.
Ashish, sorry. So, Ashish, I'm wondering, what did you want to influence, Muthoot Finance or IPL? I'm just, if you can answer that, then I can probably, custom my answer. So, you want an influencer for the relationship? I mean, I didn't quite get it.
Ashish, I'm unmuting you. Yeah, Ashish, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello, can you hear me?
sure. Can you
Yeah, I
please
can
go
hear
ahead?
you.
Yeah. Hi. Vikram, so basically what I wanted to ask was, as it would be a co-branding campaign, so it can be in such a aspiration that we can work either the influence for both as as IPL as well as working with the Muthoot Finance. So both the companies can help out or probably find a small loophole within the whole influencing thing, probably for not just to get into the higher market or to get into the finance, but I like how would both the brands basically acquire something good out of influencing into a small short-term campaign. Like before the IPL starts, there's probably 3 to 4 months of just promotion to make sure that people are aware of knowing that IPL is starting on a certain day. So, for example, something like that. How could both the companies gain from that?
Okay, that's a very interesting question because, short-term campaigns usually are not advisable. It's not advisable using influencers for short-term campaigns. The reason
Right.
being that the lead time, the amount of time it will take you to develop, identify, develop, and engage these influencers would probably be the time duration the IPL would run. So it's sometimes counterproductive to use influencers for short-term campaigns. But in general, I think the IPL movement overall was heavily influenced by our lack of time. The fact that we did not have the whole day to sit and watch a cricket match. At the same time, it is also influenced by our regional loyalties, right? So there were two
Yep.
strong influencers there. The lack of
Yep.
time we have, and the fact that we all love the cities we live in. Um,
Yep.
and Muthoot Finance, I think overall, despite being from Kerala, I think their biggest foray was the gold loans.
Yep.
And they I'm sure they must be having their own set of influencers who influence people to go for gold loans. So I
Yeah,
think,
but like in the same, sorry to interrupt, but like as you said, in the same motion like Muthoot Finance had in Kerala, and they're from Kerala, but Shah Rukh Khan was from Mumbai, and as you've seen, like even in the news, they use this stealth strategies, like again going back to the media channels, they make sure that Shah Rukh Khan was caught smoking, and then they make Kolkata Knight Riders for blah blah blah, and the news makes it in such a hyper way to make sure that it's not just influence, but people even sitting next door on in the same restaurant, in the same pub, they're supporting a certain team in the last season, and suddenly the influence is so big that the whole set of friends on the same table are probably supporting Kolkata Knight Riders the next season. So I was like in that context, I was saying that how can influences in that short term can affect not just the goal campaign, but like in both ways. Like, is there a certain strategy, or there might be a certain bridge where it can be attacked?
yeah, I mean, I would not recommend influencer campaign for a short-term period because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. IPL
Not
overall,
even
no,
not
not for
even
three
for the
months.
ones in the IPL, like for
Mm,
getting into a
not
certain the hotel industry, probably who is trying to get the IPL fever to make sure a certain group of people or college students are getting in, and then in that scenario.
Yeah, see, if you really ask me, you need an influencer campaign for newer things, right? Like the Pro Kabaddi League. I think that needs an influencer campaign because the concept that kabaddi could be, entertaining and it is not just a rural rustic sport, but even the city dwellers can enjoy, is something that needs influencing right now. Cricket, does cricket need an influencer? I don't think so, really, because it's everybody follows cricket in India. It's almost like a religion. And
But the interchanging of the teams might need influence. Like even with say Kolkata Knight Riders, they are also co-branding something else. Or even with say Mumbai Indians, they not just being from Mumbai or from Delhi. The community or the audience of following them, they're buying their merchandise. The teams who are being co-branded. So in that context, I say that not as the game which is to be promoted, but the teams which are playing the game.
no, no, merchandising is a different concept altogether. Yeah, if you ask me purely, are the IPL t-shirts as famous as some of the English football team t-shirts? No, they're not. Can an influencer campaign be run around merchandising? Wearing your city's t-shirt on you, not only purely for an IPL match, but generally as a fashion statement or as a philosophy. Now, for that, you can run an influencer campaign. I think that's a great idea, and nobody's
Right.
done it so far. So, what I would recommend if you're working on this, obviously, if I come to Delhi, please send me a few tickets.
No, I'm not actually. I'd love to. I'm stuck in Nashik. I would as much as you would love to. I'd love to be there and
Yeah,
get
but
tickets
if
also.
you are following this, I think what I would recommend is if you want to really look at merchandising, which is a very important part of any sports club, it's a big source of revenue. I think for Indian IPL teams, the teams across the cities, I think they need to run an influencer campaign just for the merchandising. I think merchandising is nowhere close to where it should be.
Yeah, that's
All right.
that's
Great. Guys, I think we have already exceeded 5 minutes. So if any of your question is not addressed and it's urgent, you can just press the hand raise button and I'll mute you. If you have any question and it's urgent, just let me know. I'll unmute you. Yeah. So there is a Sumit. Yeah. Just hold on. Yeah, Sumit, I have unmuted you.
Yeah, hi Dr. Vikram, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
This is Sumit Kad here, and I wanted to ask one question. You said that we have to nurture the influencers. So when we don't you think the influencers change with time for a particular industry? So a person who is active for 4 or 5 months, he may not be active after 3 or 4 months. You gave an example of how Gillette, what happened with with Gillette company when all the four brand ambassadors had a slide in their careers. So don't you think it's kind of an investment in a lost cause sometimes? If yes, then how do we take care to overcome this, or is it just totally luck?
No, not really. If you're leaving things to luck, then you're definitely in trouble. But in my opinion, I think some of these tools, and you used these tools in the past, they give us a fair indication of whose influence is rising and whose influence is waning. What this requires, in my opinion, is a constant monitoring of the rising people as well as those who are at their peak. See, if I have to really hedge against nurturing an influencer whose influence is going to fall dramatically, what I'll do is I'll probably take a few influencers from every bucket, right? From the very high to somebody like an industry rock star to somebody like a rising star. So I'll spread them across this and start nurturing the whole as a group. Obviously, every few months I'll have to take corrective action. I'm recommending not dropping anybody. See, even if the influence has gone down, I recommend don't drop them, but keep the engagement, shift it to a lower level, and shift somebody else higher. That means if you're doing a launch and you engage with a few of these influencers regularly, and your policy is that every 1 month you engage with them in some activity or the other. So I would recommend if you don't drop an influencer totally, keep him at a lower level and pull somebody else higher. But you got to keep involving them in the discussion. See, those conversations have to go on, otherwise they are under no obligation to promote your brand. Right? So one of the dangers we run is obviously, like you said, you get this influencer and you really nurture him and you find out that he's absolutely lost his influence and he has nothing to do with the industry. Good example would be if anybody wanted, a good example in India is Mr. Vijay Mallya, very strong superstar influence in aviation industry for a while, and now he's totally fallen off the grid, right? Nobody would want to go to him for advice for airlines. So in my opinion, you got to spread it across people, keep monitoring the situation, and if you feel the guy's losing his influence, then put him at a lower bracket, but just still keep him. Because unless something drastic happens and the person's totally gone off the grid, he still can regain his influence and you push him back up. So I hope I answered your question.
You did answer my question. One last question, just few seconds I will take. So I will try to put you in a tight spot here. If I ask you one most important thing in the entire cycle of the influencer relationship that you just described over half an hour or so, is it the identification of an influencer? Is it the way we build the relationship? Or is it the way we nurture the relationship? So out of these three, which is one most important thing that any marketer should always focus on?
I think nurturing. Nurturing is the toughest. It's like finding a friend, right? You find a friend, you become friends, then you hang around for a while, then you build the friendship, and then one fine day you get busy in your job, he gets busy in your job, you stop talking to each other. I think nurturing is very, very important. And especially, marketers will always face this question from your sales organization. What's the ROI? You're spending so much money. What's happening? How many leads has this guy got? Very difficult to quantify all this. So I would recommend having a very strong mechanism of engagement, because one of the ways of engagement is, for example, when we work with Gartner, one of the metrics we use to measure is how many times has Gartner brought us into a conversation and how many times Gartner has mentioned us, right? That's an example. So it's more than just appearing on a report. It also gives you an indication of how many conversations are you involved. The more you nurture these people, the more information you'll get that your influencer will tell you, I was at this place and they were asking about the services like what you provide, and I said, well, you guys should go here. and you should talk to these guys. So that gives you an indication that your influencer is already talking about you, and this could be a direction to your sales guys that, hey, you know what, that area, there seems to be some demand of this kind of services we are providing. Why don't we get involved? Our influencer has already introduced us in a way, to the authority he has, right? So I think nurturing is the toughest part, because nurturing not only gives you an idea of where you're going with the relationship, it also gives you insights as to who else wants your stuff, who else wants your products and services. And that can prove as a very good input into your CRM or into your sales process.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sumit. I think that's it from our side. Looks like there is no more question. So, guys, I really want to thank all of you for attending today's session, and really want to thank you, Vikram. It was a very, very interesting, very, very insightful session, especially for me as well. So, thank you very much for all your insights.
Thank you, Kapil. Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Bye for
Thank
now.
you, everybody. Thanks. The session is closed.